3 minutes after the hour of 8 o'clock, and it is a Thursday morning, and I've got Miss Helen Stapleton with me this morning. Good morning, Helen. How are you?
I am fine. How are you?
I am doing just fine.
Good. We were both jealous of Ricky being in California where it's 50, 60 degrees. Oh,
It is a whole lot cooler out there.
It sure is. Well, great. This is Common Sense Matters, and today we're going to be interviewing a young man named Spike Hosch, and he's running for my seat on the county commission. I'm stepping down. I've done 2 terms on the county commission, and I always said if I felt like somebody who would fill the seat well would come along, then I would be happy to step down, and Spike was interested, and so I gladly stepped down, and he's running, and lucky for him, he's running unopposed. So he doesn't necessarily need to campaign, but he wants your vote. He wants to prove himself and everything, and so he is actually on the road to Memphis, but he said he was going to call in at around 8:15. So that's who's going to be our guest today. But I did want to make an announcement tonight at 6 o'clock. From 6 to 8, the Democratic Party is having a free swim and election rally at the Swimplex. And so anyone who wants to can come. Admission is free. And there's going to be swimming, there's going to be hot dogs, dinner, we're going to be grilling, and then all the Democratic candidates will be there as well for you to meet them and hear their, stump speech and everything. So please come out. It's tonight from 6 to 8 at the Swimplex, 251 Old Estill Springs Road, and we would love to see y'all at that. We did have Jason Martin, but that was 2 days ago. So that's really our only announcement is that big event coming up. And then, of course, our monthly meetings are every third Thursday of the month at the Annex at 6 o'clock. So the next one will be in August, and sorry, I'm just looking at my calendar. The third Thursday will be the 18th. So our next meeting is August 18th at 6 o'clock at the Annex, if you can make it to that. But please try and come out tonight. It'll be fun. And get to meet all the other Democrats in the county. You think, oh, there's none of us left, but there are. You'd be surprised. I also wanted to announce that, and most of you probably already know this, but that there's a grocery tax holiday coming up in August. And that's big, y'all.
It will be big.
Mm-hmm.
Sure is.
A lot of people say, oh, we're so lucky here in Tennessee. We don't pay taxes, because we don't have a state income tax.
Yeah.
But you do pay taxes. You pay them every time you go to the grocery store. It's
every time you fill up your car with gas.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So what we have in Tennessee is what we call a regressive tax. Progressive tax is when the more you make, the more you pay. A regressive tax is everybody pays the same, whether you're a billionaire or whether you make minimum wage. You all pay the same amount of taxes. And so if you think about it, a family of 5 making $40,000 a year, they're paying the exact same amount of taxes as your millionaire family, making $5 million a year, because a carton of milk costs the same.
Yes, it does.
Right? Whether you work at McDonald's or whether you own Amazon, it still costs the same. So Tennessee does have a tax on every single man, woman, and child, and that's whether you're a citizen, whether you're here legally, you're all paying that tax. So everybody in Tennessee is a taxpayer. So and my sister who lives in Maine, she like can't believe how high. She's like, God, y'all's tax, when she goes to the grocery store, they tack on so much tax there. So I know the idea of an income tax is not popular, but okay, put it this way. Every time you go to the grocery store, you're paying roughly 10%. So if you go to the grocery store, your bill's $100, you're paying about $10 in taxes every time you go to the grocery store. So let's say you do that once a week, that works out to $40 a week, which then works out to, I don't know, roughly $200 a year. So it's just funny to me that people are perfectly fine with paying, $10 a week in taxes, but they aren't. No, sorry, $10 a week works out to $500 a year. But they sure would get angry if at the end of the year, when people do income taxes, if they had to write a $500 check to the state of Tennessee. Like, that would make them very upset and angry, but they don't seem to mind that having it come out of your taxes. I guess it is more convenient.
When it's coming out weekly, they're not paying that much attention to it.
Exactly.
But when it has to come all at one time, that's when the surprise comes.
Yeah, true. That's very true. But I still think it's sort of not fair that a billionaire family is paying the exact same amount of taxes as a hardworking, lower income family. That doesn't seem fair to me, but whatever, that's the state we live in, so. But anyway, take advantage of that. If there's anything you've been wanting to stock up on, this is the time to stock up on it, get a bunch of vegetable oil or things that's not going to spoil, diapers, things like that. So, anyway.
Especially with the increase at the grocery store,
Yeah, right. Right, so this will kind of, and I think that was their thinking, is to help kind of offset inflation. And that is what we're going to be talking about with Spike today, is inflation. And I think it used to be they just did the tax holiday was only on school supplies, and I remember always going. It was just one weekend. I remember when my kids were in school, and we would all go and just.
That holiday starts tomorrow night.
Right.
Goes July 29th through through July 31st.
Okay. All right.
But this other tax that you're talking about is the whole month of August.
Yeah. And so that's going to be a big help to a lot of people. You're going to be saving about $10 every time depending on how much. I can't seem to get out of the grocery store without spending at least $100. It seems like
Or two.
Every time I go in there.
If you spend $100, you're not getting very much.
Nope, definitely not. Especially at the Piggly Wiggly in Monteagle where we go. Okay. So, Spike is he has started a business called BetterFi, and I'm sure you see all up and down Dinah Shore Boulevard all the payday lenders, right? So what BetterFi is an alternative to these payday lenders. So and I'll let him explain it better, but a lot of people get in trouble with these payday lenders. And with his business, the rate is a lot lower and stuff like that. So he's gonna be talking about his work with that. So that's it's in Grundy County though. So unfortunately, we don't have one here in Franklin County. But I'm hoping it will spread,
Right.
and put those payday lenders out of business, because a lot of people get really, really messed up with those. Anyway, he can explain it much better than I can. Anyway, so he should be calling in about 3 minutes or so. Hang on, I think that's him texting me. Okay. Sorry. And I also just wanted to announce that early voting has 3 more days, right? There's today, tomorrow, and then Saturday. So please get out and early vote. It goes from 8 to 4 on today and Friday, and then on Saturday, 8 to noon, right? Or does it go longer on the last day, maybe?
I'll have to look before I say anything,
Okay.
but they've been going to 4:30.
Okay. Okay. All right. So 8 to 4:30. So please get out and vote early. It is so convenient. It took me like 5 minutes to do it. There was hardly any line at all, and because who knows where you're going to be on August 4th? You might get sick. You might have work. You might.
Well, it also helps you to beat the long lines at the voting precincts. Early voting is till 4:30 today, 4:30 tomorrow, and on Saturday, 8 to 12.
Okay, 8 to 12. So please get out and vote early. And then if you can't do that, then, Election Day is going to be August 4th. Starts at 7 a.m., goes till 7 p.m. So please make sure you get your voice heard. We've got county commission seats to fill. I believe that is Spike calling in.
Good morning, caller.
Good morning, this is Spike calling in.
All right.
All right. Hey.
How are you doing? Can you hear me okay?
Yeah. Where are you right now?
I'm actually in Memphis on my way to vacation in Arkansas, so.
Oh, goodness. Okay. Well, I hope they have good cell coverage there.
Yeah. Looks like I have one bar, but it seems like y'all can hear me okay, so that's good.
We hear you just fine. All right.
Great.
So, Spike, I told them that you were running unopposed for my seat.
Yep.
Just give us a little short bio about yourself. Where you're from, where you went to school, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I grew up, I was born in Austin, Texas, but grew up in Covington, Louisiana, which is a suburb on the north side of Lake Pontchartrain, across from New Orleans, so down there in Louisiana.
Like me, I'm from
high school
Louisiana
there.
too.
What's that?
Oh, I just said like me, I'm from Louisiana too.
Yeah, isn't that funny? Maybe it's a Louisiana seat, I don't know. And then I came to Sewanee for college and graduated in 2012. I worked abroad in banking and green energy finance for a few years, and then came back to the mountain where I set up a nonprofit that I run in Grundy County. So that's a quick overview.
Okay. And Spike just bought a house, and he's two doors down from me. So you are affected by this property tax rise. Luckily.
Oh yeah, we actually got the new assessment. It seemed like weeks after we moved in. So
Right. So at least you didn't spend years used to the old rate, and then boom, got the shock. You got the shock right away. And we'll get to that later. So tell the people, I mentioned about BetterFi, the nonprofit that you run, and how it is an alternative to the payday lenders. So tell us just a little bit about how BetterFi works.
Sure. Well, probably most people, living in Winchester and Franklin County are familiar with those payday lenders, or at least would recognize them if I named them all. They're all up and down Dinah Shore. They go out to Tullahoma too, and most of their loans carry interest rates as high as 260 to 460% per year on an annual basis. And so you can be borrowing, $500 that you are borrowing for 1 month, and you owe $690 a month from them. So your interest is, $190 on a $500 loan. And so you can see where it'd be easy to get in a situation where you're paying every month, paying over and over again, and unable to actually pay it down or get out of it. And so BetterFi, we're a 501c3 nonprofit, and I consider ourselves kind of like a quasi-market solution. So we are tax exempt and we're a charity, but we're also a licensed lender in Tennessee. And so what we'll actually do is buy out a payday or title loan that someone's paying on, refinance it at a much, much lower rate so that people can actually pay it down, get out of it. And then as they're doing that, they're actually building their credit score. They have access to things like financial coaching from us, pre-tax prep. And the goal is really to help them get out of that kind of debt trap and then build credit and eventually graduate to a bank, credit union, somewhere like that. So as they build up their credit, as they get out of the bind they're in, hopefully they can then, next time they need some kind of loan or credit, talk to their local bank, open an account, and become a bankable person.
And so you said that someone can come to you if they are already deeply in debt to a payday lender, but can somebody come to you who has never borrowed from a payday lender before, but they still the banks won't help them?
Yeah, so if they have some kind of explicit expense, like a particular thing they need to pay, then yes, definitely. We don't do any kind of cash loans for first-time clients, and we don't really do things like car loans. But, if something came up and said this month you're behind on a light bill when normally you aren't, or if you have a car repair or a home repair, or any kind of expense that is irregular, usually we can help with that. Our requirements are you do need to live in Tennessee, and our target area is Grundy, Franklin, Marion counties.
Okay.
And then you do need some kind of income, so that you need to have some way to pay it back, essentially.
Right. Oh, okay. So I didn't realize that y'all served Franklin County too. I thought it was just Grundy. So it is Franklin?
Yep. So we actually, technically we can make a loan and help someone anywhere in Tennessee. But so we're also what's called a CDFI, so Community Development Financial Institution. And our target geographic area is Grundy and the contiguous counties around it.
Okay.
But that being said, if anyone's close enough, then we usually can make it work. And we've actually even done a couple of loans in Memphis, in Nashville, and Knoxville. So.
Okay. And what interest rate do y'all charge?
So we charge about 24% per year, which is like an expensive credit card. So on that $500 loan, which with a payday lender would carry $191 in interest every month. Someone would owe us $10 in interest that first month, and it would drop thereafter. So over the course of a year on a $500 loan from BetterFi, someone will pay about $64 in interest.
Okay. And so since y'all are a nonprofit, what happens with the money that you make? You just loan it out more?
Exactly, yeah. And or it goes into additional services like free financial coaching. We do junior achievement, which is like programming for kids in Grundy County. And so that's like, it's called Economics for Success, and it helps kids think about careers, how much money they might make, learn what a budget is, learn what insurance is, learn about credit cards, debit cards, how to use cards safely, that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I often will mention to people that nonprofit still means we need to have more money coming in than going out. So this is just a way to reduce dependence on donations in the long run.
Right. Good. Okay, but y'all do accept donations, right?
We do, yeah. Every donation to us is tax deductible. And so donations can be made through our website at betterfi.com. Betterfi.org works. If you just Google it, you'll find it. And then we also we work with a couple of companies that produce shirts, and they'll make a donation every time a shirt is bought.
Okay.
With a BetterFi logo on it. So it's a fun way to help us out, too.
Okay. Well, I remember, in our family, we picked names, and I picked my my nephew who went to school with you, Spike, in New Orleans, or down in Covington, and all he wanted for Christmas was for me to make a donation to BetterFi. So,
well, we appreciate it, yeah.
That's what I did.
So we're in this kind of weird space where we're too small to really sustain ourselves, and so we're working on expanding the volume of loans we do, trying to grow. And so we are very dependent on donations right now. We get donations from a lot of individuals, and then we also get some government grants as a CDFI. So that's helping us kind of weather the point until we can fund ourselves.
Okay. Now, what are Tennessee lawmakers doing to protect its citizens from these other kind of payday lenders? Are they doing anything at all, or they're just nothing? Or?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're doing pretty much the opposite of what they should be doing. So, whereas many other states are increasing restrictions on these types of loans in terms of how many times they can be renewed, how long they can be taken out for, what the interest rate is, and then there are even some federal protections for specific groups like active service members, where it's actually illegal to charge an active service member more than 36% per year. Tennessee, in the last few years, has introduced new licenses that give these kinds of lenders more flexibility and fewer public reporting requirements. So I'd say it seems like we're going in the wrong direction right now, and it'll only become more obvious that's the case as people get squeezed by inflation and have to turn to predatory loans just to cover basic necessities.
Right. Now, have you noticed with all the inflation that we're having an increase in people needing loans?
Yeah, I mean, so there's some pretty good data on the few public payday and title lenders that there's increased demand. I mean, we've started seeing an uptick in demand and also an uptick in people who are having trouble making their full payment to us every month. So when inflation goes up, people get squeezed across the board, and that means that any kind of expense is going to be sometimes multiple times higher than it was maybe a few years ago. And so if they don't have access to conventional finance, often their only option to get that money is some kind of predatory lender.
Yeah. Okay. And so our state legislature is not protecting the people, it's protecting the payday lenders, it seems like. And just
Yeah, and there's different measures that can be taken, obviously, with the internet and with, interstate commerce. You can't police the lenders in other states. So even states that ban them outright will see people in their state get loans online. And I see that already with folks who borrow from online lenders in places like Texas or even Alaska. But some kind of restrictions would help at least have the ones that are nearby and in rural areas that are accessible to a lot of our low-income and vulnerable people, not be able to entrap quite as many as easily. And even some requirements to divulge kind of the scale and scope of these things would be helpful. Title lenders are the only group in Tennessee that have to report that stuff and have the state make an annual or biannual report on how many of those things go out, how long they're usually renewed, what the average interest rate is. And so as you move out of those title lender licenses into flex loan licenses, that data is also lost on the public, which can inform policy and people who want to compete with them even.
Well, that's what Republicans do. They protect corporations and they do not protect people. That's for sure. I don't want to make your work political, but the legislature is overwhelmingly controlled by Republicans, and they are not protecting the consumer against these payday lenders. Anyway, let's move on.
To verify what we really, as a nonprofit, we can't lobby or give opinions on, individual people or policies or laws that are being passed, but we can advocate in general for restrictions on things like interest rates, and, that would go a long way in terms of protecting people by reducing what lenders can charge.
Okay, well, the main thing I wanted to talk about today, and we touched on this just a little bit, is inflation. What do you? Everybody seems to be blaming Biden for inflation. What causes inflation?
Yeah.
Is it the president? I mean, what does typically, or what's causing this current round of inflation that we're having?
Yeah, if you ask for 10 different economists, you'll get 10 different answers. And so anyone who's saying that they know the definitive thing that's causing inflation is probably full of it and doesn't really know. I think it looks like all the stuff you read online is probably a contributing factor, so supply chain issues. And then really whenever there's a glut of dollars and money, if it's not going to added capacity, to added business, to added production, then you're going to have some kind of inflation because there's no added value or production correlating with the additional cash in an economy. And so, you can see lots of companies have been having record corporate profits. And, their margins might be similar to where they were a couple of years ago, but in dollar terms, they're still up. There's lots of stock buybacks. There's been kind of increased interest by some economists in looking at what's called tacit collusion. So it's not companies that are explicitly working with each other to do things like set prices, but maybe they're realizing that when their supply costs go up and then they start dropping again, the demand for the product hasn't changed. And so it's not in their profit maximizing interest to reduce prices, right? So there's what's called price stickiness coming back down, but not going up. And a lot of, consumers want to maintain their standard of living. They want to keep doing what they can to enjoy the same things they typically enjoy. So as those costs go up, they keep trying to find more and more ways to maintain that standard of living. And it's not, a slight against consumers. It's really a slight against the corporations that know that people will still keep buying their products even as the prices go up. And at some point that breaks down, but we haven't really seen that too much yet until very, very recently. And so inflation is just, even when wages are going up, the dollar's buying less and less. There's limited things, that a president can really do, especially a president who's worried about setting bad precedents for whoever might come after. So if he's, worried about keeping the Democrats' control of some parts of the legislature, he might not be willing to do things like executive action, even though he probably could do something to adjust what people are feeling in their pocketbooks. Things like corporate subsidies, of course. The typical economist argument is it's necessary to weather the bad times, but then when we're in good times, we're just subsidizing oil companies to see record profits for their shareholders while we see high dollars at the pump. I mean, that's not really a very straight answer, I guess, but there's a million things that are probably affecting it.
Yeah, so it's pretty remarkable that we are subsidizing oil companies, us the taxpayers, and they are making the highest profits they've ever made in history right now.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just this trend towards socializing corporate losses while privatizing their profits, right? So whenever things go badly, the taxpayer's on the hook for it. Whenever things go well, all those benefits of the company usually still continue, and they're able to do stock buybacks, increase their share price, that kind of thing.
Is inflation only happening in the U.S., or is it all over the world?
No, it's all over the world. Primarily, the suspicion, I think, by most economists is due to the cost of supplies, of things like oil, gas, electricity, materials that are used. I mean, so China still is seeing huge shutdowns due to COVID. They're closing down entire cities still to try and fight COVID, so that's obviously affecting the supply chain. And, of course, the war in Ukraine is affecting the supply chain. The Ukraine, which is a big breadbasket for the area there, is unable to get food out, unable to get gas out. Russia's, cutting off gas pipelines and vice versa. Countries are trying to turn them off. And so all those things will increase prices, across the globe, really.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like every time I turn on the news, there's, there are riots in Africa over rising prices, in Asia, in Latin America, in Europe. I mean, it's not just here where prices are rising. And
we're lucky enough to have kind of some buffer, and then unlucky enough to have things like predatory lenders, which will, help people maintain their standard of living temporarily. But over time, the added credit card debt, loan debt that people are taking out to try and stay on top of things or even maintain necessities is really a ticking time bomb. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with that. Interesting in a bad way, of course.
Yeah, and in every country, they're blaming their president and thinking they need to kick their president out because of inflation. And it's happening, like I said, it's happening in every continent. And in almost in every country in the world. And so it can't be the fault. It can't just be Biden's fault. And it can't just be like the president of Nigeria's fault who's getting, riots against him. It's just sort of...
In a globalized world, we're all very interdependent upon each other. And so, unfortunately, we're all seeing it.
Yeah. So we're, here in Franklin County, we're kind of dealing with the big issue of how do you balance growth and inflation, because of all the growth and the people moving here to be on the lake and stuff. Real estate prices are really going up in our area. So, I mean, and these are the kind of issues that you will have to deal with a lot on the county commission. Like somebody wants to zone some agricultural land to residential because they're going to put in a big new housing development or something like that. And, of course, the more of this we do, the more our property assessments will go up. So how do you balance that? We want growth in our county, but we also want to keep our property taxes low, and that's we all, like I said, we all just saw that property assessment come in the mail, that our houses and our land have pretty much almost doubled in value. So you tend to want to say, well, let's just stop growing. Let's not let any more retirees move in and drive our land prices up. And yet at the same time, I hear on the county commission all the time, oh yeah, we need growth and blah blah blah. So I mean, what are your thoughts on that? And I know there's not just like one little pat answer, but
I mean, there's probably some balancing act that needs to happen around the certified rate the state gives, which
the
basically
what? I'm
means
sorry, I didn't hear that.
$5 coming in, right? So
Can you repeat that? You said certified something, and then I didn't hear you.
Sure, the certified tax rate that the state sets for property assessments, right? So there's that rate that basically tries to guarantee that the number of dollars going into the county will remain flat. And so that can come down as property values go up. I mean, the hard thing about property values is that as there's development, there's a larger tax base to tax.
Mm-hmm.
And property values go up, so the taxes might end up going up as well. Sorry, my dog buddy is over here saying hey to me. But, inflation is really the thing that happens to a place like Franklin County. There's little we can do to combat it directly ourselves. And, growth and development is generally good for the economics of anyone who lives there. Of course, you have to have some kind of investment to benefit from that, right? So on a long enough timeline, you'll see people who are doing lower wage jobs get priced out or get pushed to suburbs, get pushed farther away from where they need to work. And I don't really know if anywhere in Franklin County is that close to the threat of that. But, yeah, it's a balancing act that probably we don't have the ability to really manage well. It seems to me like in terms of rezoning and things like that, as long as there's some process by which the people who care about what's going on are heard, that's the most important thing. And so that decisions are made not just on the potential increase in tax base, but also, kind of the more qualitative things that neighbors might like. Mm-hmm. And so, for instance, on the mountain, there was an issue where a certain area that was zoned residential was being swapped basically to industrial or commercial. Mm-hmm. And so local residents showed up to try and fight that.
Is that for the quarry?
Yeah. What's that?
Is that for a quarry?
This is actually a different one. It was for a truck stop up in Mount Eagle.
Oh, right, yeah. Uh-huh.
There's that one as well, right? And so, I mean, obviously the quarry or truck stop brings some kind of tax boon to the county, but then you're also, in that case, going to damage the property values around it. So figuring out a way to actually balance all the constituents and not just prioritize new business ventures that might damage everyone else's property values or quality of life, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But, I mean, that's the kind of question that, even, again, another thing that economists will differ every day on, so it's hard to know what we actually know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Luckily, I'm going off the county commission, so I'm not going to have to vote on this, but, it is going to come up that y'all are going to need to vote on whether to lower the property tax to offset how much thing, like how do you think you will come down on that issue?
Yeah, to me, not just using the certified rate, but the certified rate with some kind of consideration of inflation makes sense. Of course, inflation hurts everybody, and so if you're increasing property taxes based on that, there will be some pain there as well. But I think there's a rate that's less than the amount of inflation that those things could be increased by. And that way you don't end up having things like the school run out of funding as their expenses also increase. Because the certified rate, my understanding is that it keeps the same dollar amount, but every year that dollar amount will buy less and less. So figuring out some middle ground where the full brunt of inflation isn't being passed on, but there's some consideration for the costs of the things the county incurs. Consideration of those have gone up as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. All right.
I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Okay, but going back to inflation, which is what we've kind of been talking about, like I said, everybody keeps blaming Biden and, for all this inflation. So let's imagine that you were him. What would you do to try and fix it? Or is there even anything that he could do to fix it?
Yeah, I think there are probably some first steps that can be taken to start trying to address some of this stuff. My opinion, again, I'm not an expert, is that a lot of this has to do with flush cash that corporations have right now that isn't going into additional development of product services, and there's no reduction in prices as people feel squeezed.
So in other words, they should be having to plow it back into research and development or...
Yeah, whether it's like some direct kind of requirement or even just returning to focus on antitrust. So looking at some of these a lot of these, industries, there might be just a handful or fewer corporations that basically own the entire market. And so when you have that happen, then even the theoretical, hand of the market can't do anything if there's no actual competition. So I think trust busting would be interesting to see, some kind of focus on, tacit collusion and whether or not there's price fixing going on, even, not explicitly but inadvertently, some kind of like progressive taxing on capital gains that are, kind of way beyond what we see normally. There's definitely stuff that could happen, eliminating government subsidies and bailouts for ones that are, in their good years and seeing profit maximization, or even tying things like subsidies and bailouts in hard times to some kind of repayment that has to go back to the government, when times are good, so that we're not just feeling, as taxpayers, the cost of bailing companies out when they benefit from their gains in the good years. Mm-hmm. So stuff like that could, I think, help probably. And then, the international policy stuff is obviously a lot more complicated because supply chain things can't just be remedied overnight. And you'll hear even people talk about things like oil pipelines, and even if things like Keystone were approved, those still wouldn't be online now. So it's not like that would be helping at this point.
If anybody has any questions or comments, y'all can call in at 967-2201. If you have any comments about the property tax issue or any of this, we'd be happy to hear from y'all. Well, Spike, before you go, why are you running? What do you hope to accomplish when you become county commissioner? And I'm saying when because you're unopposed. I normally would sound kind of arrogant, but you are unopposed, so you.
Mainly I'm running just because in seeing some of the interactions and engagements with different councils and people in Grundy and Monteagle, and even going down to Franklin County and seeing the commission before deciding to run, it seems like there's a wide variety of people there who are there for either the right reason and want to represent their constituents, and people who might have good intentions but I might not necessarily agree with on what that outcome or output is from those good intentions, and then folks who seem to be there for reasons apart from those. And I just wanted to make sure that really someone who at least wants to represent their constituents ends up in a position at the commission. And so really my hope is just to make it as easy as possible for people in District 5 to talk to me and tell me what they care about, what's important to them. Obviously I'll be representing, them, prioritizing them. So whether it means like setting up a Facebook page or an email or getting my phone number out, just being the person to represent them and other folks in the county who feel like they don't necessarily have a voice or a seat at the table.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Is there anything else you wanted to say before we go on?
No, I think I'm good, but I appreciate the time and y'all letting me call in.
All right, well, drive safely. I hope this wasn't too distracting for you while you were driving.
No, you're good. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Spike. All right. Okay, well, we're almost done here, but I did want to, a lot of people have not been watching the January 6th hearings, and I wanted to just review just a little bit about what they have found. You've got very credible witnesses. I mean, almost every witness in it has been a Republican. Or people who were in Trump's administration. So some of the main findings that we learned, and this is stuff that most of us already knew, but the Trump administration had at least 61 court cases suing, alleging irregular or fraudulent voting. And there were 61, he lost 60 of those cases. So it's really easy to just say stuff, but when you go into a courtroom and you have to have evidence, you have to put your hand on the Bible and swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, or it's perjury and you can get in trouble, it gets a little bit harder to just say stuff, to just make allegations, to just make claims. Trump is really good at just making claims and saying stuff, but when the rubber hits the road and you've got to swear on the Bible and you have to show proof, he lost every single time with that. I don't know what that one case out of the 61 that he didn't lose was about, honestly, but That's a pretty bad batting average. Is 60 out of 61 cases were lost. We know that he was told over and over and over from family members, from his Attorney General Bill Barr, from his counsel Cipollone, that he lost, and yet refused to believe. Well, he probably believed it, but just, I don't know, just refused to acknowledge it or accept it. So he did know for sure that he lost. We know that civil servants were targeted. People like Margaret Otley, good people that we know in our community, were targeted and told to lie, to not do their job the way they were taught to do their job. We even heard the phone call with him and the Georgia election official saying, "Can you just find me some 9,000 something votes so that I can win?" I mean, not only election officials, but just even the regular old poll workers who are, also just good, solid people in your community. These people were targeted. These people got death threats. These people are in hiding, a lot of them. Do we have a call?
You do.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead, caller, you're on there.
Helen, this is completely off of what you're talking about. This is Betty Fraley.
Oh, hey, Betty.
But I was just listening to the sheriff before you came on,
Uh-huh.
and he was talking about having so much less money for mental health than he has had in years past.
Mm.
And part of that is because we did not expand Medicaid. So I thought you might spend some time on that. I'm still harping on that. I just do not understand why our state did not expand Medicaid and help children with insurance. And I listened to a candidate the other night who said that 400,000 more people in this state would have insurance if we had expanded Medicaid. And I don't think it's too late. I think we still can do something. But we've got to have somebody there who will vote for it.
Yep.
Thank you.
Kentucky, thank you, Betty. Yeah, Kentucky next door did it. Arkansas next door did it. Virginia next door did it. Accepted Medicaid, expanded Medicaid. And this is...
And our money is going to them.
Yep, I know.
Our tax money that is there for us is going to these states who did expand Medicaid. Kentucky expanded Medicaid.
Yep.
Okay, that's all I've got.
Thank you. Yeah.
Of course, I could spend 2 hours on education and what the legislature is doing to public education, but I won't.
Well, they won't protect you from payday lenders, but they'll protect you from getting health care.
And Spike's program, I wish he had pointed out that 24% is just 2% a month. I just walked into one of the payday loans the other day just to see what their interest rate was. It's 36%, and that's 36% per month, I would imagine. So Spike has got a real good deal for the people who need to, but that's 2% a month. And these payday loan people are charging, I guess, 36% a month. That's all I got.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Okay, thank you so much, Betty. Was there another caller? Okay, so yes, Betty is exactly right about that. Okay, the other thing that the January 6th committee proved and showed is that GOP lawmakers participated in this. They one of them, what's his name? From Georgia. I'm blanking on his name, but he led people on a tour of the Capitol the day before. I've been on tours of the Capitol. Scott Desjardins and his assistant, let me and my family go on a tour, but he didn't personally lead me around. You have an aide who does that. It's very rare for the congressman himself or herself to lead a group around. And first of all, he lied about God, I can't remember his name, but he's a he's a Republican congressman from Georgia. First of all, he lied about it and said, no, I didn't take a group around the Capitol and show them underground staircases and hidden elevators and things like that. Then, he was caught on tape doing it. So then he said, oh, yes, I did. But it was just a small group. It turned out the group was a lot larger. But anyway, it's very, very fishy. It's very irregular. Why would you lie about that if there was nothing unusual about it? And many lawmakers, GOP lawmakers, participated in this. There are texts missing from the Secret Service from the day of and the day before, lots of them. That's also rather unusual. They tried to pressure Mike Pence relentlessly into doing what Mike Pence knew was illegal and against our Constitution. They threatened to kill him. They tried to switch out electors and put in fake electors to go to the Electoral College. So I know many of y'all may not have voted for Joe Biden, but I did, and that's stealing my vote. That they were trying to overturn my vote for him and many others, and he won by a huge margin, and they were trying to do that. On the day of January 6th, there was a speech that Trump and his aides had gone over. Trump kept changing the text of the speech to put in inflammatory language against Mike Pence. Trump knew that the protesters on January 6th were armed, and he tried to have the gun detectors in the area removed so that they could bring in the guns, because, as he said, they're not here to get me. He tried to overturn the head of the Justice Department with this man named Jeffrey Clark, who was just a yes man and a loyalist. But every member of the Justice Department threatened to quit if they had done that. So Bill Barr testified about that. So, we rely on our Justice Department, and we need a qualified individual in charge of that. He wanted to put in this man who I think he had tried 2 cases in his life. He was an environmental lawyer. So, he doesn't care about who's going to do a good job for the American people. He just cared about who would be loyal to him and who would carry on the big lie for him. What else did we learn? Well, he spread all sorts of ridiculous conspiracy theories that have not held up in court, like that Dominion election systems were flipping votes. Well, Dominion sued the people saying that in court. And again, we come back to anybody can go around and just say stuff, oh, Dominion is corrupt, Dominion did this, did that. But when you are in a courtroom and you have to show evidence and swear on the Bible that you're telling the truth under perjury, you can't just say stuff anymore. So, anyway, it's been very eye-opening. I think if anyone would just watch these credible people telling their truth, and how can it be that every single one of these credible people, be lying, and Trump's the only one telling the truth? I mean, you just have to question, why do I believe someone who all the evidence points against? Why do I have to do these mental gymnastics? I'm going to believe this one person who's lying, but not believe all the professional people like Margaret Otley. I know there was nothing in our count. The other thing is, how is it that Trump won, but Democrats lost all these Senate seats? Why, if they were stealing it, wouldn't they? And the other thing is, how do you get people to go in and vote fraudulently when we can't even get all the legal people to vote? I think Margaret Otley mentioned that maybe only 25% of eligible registered voters or eligible voters actually show up to vote. So, I mean, if we can't even get legal people to vote, how are you going to get, hundreds of thousands of people to come out of the woodwork, risk a federal crime to vote, and it may or may not even swing the election your way? It just makes no sense at all.
Good morning, caller. You're on the air.
Good morning, Helen and Karen. This is Nancy Silvertooth. On voting, I want to remind everybody that today, July the 28th, is the last day to request an absentee ballot from our election commission. And you can do that today. Of course, it's too late to mail it, but you can send a request to our election commission here, our election office, Margaret Otley, by email, not regular mail. Today it's too late, but email or fax. And you get that form online if you simply, everybody's got a smartphone or a computer just about, but if you just type in Franklin County, Tennessee, election commission, the page, Margaret's page will come up, the election administrator's page will come up, and you can get to this absentee by mail form that you send in. You request it in writing, but it just helps if you send that form in. If you go to, when you pull up Margaret's page, there's a list of items that you can click on to get information on. One of them is information about absentee voting. Click on that, and you'll get to that form. And I believe I've got time. Let me tell you right quick, people who are eligible to do the absentee by mail ballot. If you're over 60 years of age, will be outside of the county during early voting and on election day, hospitalized, ill, or physically disabled, caretaker of a hospitalized, ill, or disabled person. Now, I'm shortening this a little bit. You need to look at the form. Full-time student or spouse of a full-time student outside the county, reside at a licensed facility outside the county, a candidate for office in the election. You observe a religious holiday that prevents you from voting during early voting or election day. Will be serving as an election official or member of an employee of an election commission. Serving on jury duty. I will be serving on jury duty. Voter with a disability and the polling place is inaccessible. If you have a CDL or TWIC card, or the spouse of a person with a CDL or TWIC card. And then, with regard to military, I am a member of the military, spouse or dependent. I am an activated National Guard member on state orders. I'm an overseas citizen and otherwise qualified to vote in Tennessee. All of those are listed on that form. And today is the last day. The request must be made to the election office at least 7 days before the election, and that's today. But as I understand it, you can't walk in and ask for a form. It needs to be emailed or faxed to them.
Thank you. All right, yeah, because of course if you were walking in, you could just early vote. Thank you so much, Nancy. That's great information. So remember, y'all, you've got 3 more days to vote early, today, tomorrow, Saturday until noon, and then Election Day is August 4th, of course. And please come out tonight at from 6 to 8 to the Winchester Swimplex for our rally and free swim. You can come and swim free of charge. There'll be hot dogs and all kinds of food there, and you can meet the Democratic candidates running. Thank you, and y'all have a great day. I'm out of here.
All right, and it has been Common Sense Matters. It is 2.5 minutes before the hour of 9 o'clock. And let's take a look at your weather. We've got showers and possibly some thunderstorms. Right now it's a little bit overcast outside, but we need the rain. Mostly sunny today with a high near 93 and a heat index value as high as 97. A southwest wind 5 to 10 miles an hour. Coming up tonight, showers and thunderstorms are likely. Partly cloudy with the lows around 72 and a west wind 10 miles an hour.